Humanity was losing. The war had raged for years, and despite their ingenuity and relentless spirit, the enemy held the advantage. The Zalari Dominion, an empire of cold efficiency and brutal tactics, had pushed human forces to the brink. Their ships were faster, their weapons more advanced, their fleets endless. The battle for the Antris sector was supposed to be humanity's last stand, a desperate attempt to hold the line before the Dominion crushed them completely. Admiral Kane stood on the bridge of the HSS Resolute, his eyes locked onto the tactical display. The Dominion fleet had already broken through 2 defensive layers, their wedge formation cutting through human lines like a knife through soft metal. Each red marker on the screen represented another fallen ally. "Admiral, we've lost the Vanguard and the Peregrine. Enemy battleships are advancing on our position," a lieutenant reported, his voice strained. Kane clenched his fists. He had fought in a dozen major battles, had seen death more times than he could count. But this was different. The enemy wasn't just winning. They were dismantling humanity's resistance piece by piece, like a predator toying with dying prey. A new alarm blared. Not an attack warning. Not an engine failure. Something else. "Sir," the comms officer's voice cracked. A new contact just appeared on the battlefield. No FDL signature. It just arrived. Kane's eyes snapped to the display. A single blip positioned behind the Dominion fleet. No transponder signal. No known classification. What the hell am I looking at? A silence fell over the bridge as the crew processed what they were seeing. The ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of a standard battleship. Its dark, angular frame absorbed light like a void, its surface marked by no visible insignia, no familiar hull patterns. It was a ghost, a phantom lurking in the shadows of history. "That can't be real," one officer muttered. "That ship, it's a myth." Stories had circulated for years. Whispers in deep space bars, fragments of data logs too corrupted to verify. A warship beyond human engineering, lost in time, hidden from history. Some claimed it was an experiment gone wrong. Others swore it was the last relic of a forgotten war. But no one had ever seen it. Until now. The Dominion fleet reacted immediately. Their formations shifted. Vessels repositioning, as if some unspoken command had been given. Kane had fought them long enough to know their tactics. They weren't just reacting to an unknown. They were afraid. Without warning, the warship moved. It didn't engage its thrusters, didn't follow conventional acceleration paths. It simply shifted, vanishing from one point and reappearing behind the lead Dominion dreadnought. Then it fired. A single burst of energy, deep crimson and jagged as lightning, lands through the Dominion flagship. Shields, armor, hull, none of it mattered. The ship disintegrated. Not in an explosion, but as if reality itself had unraveled around it. The battle froze. Every Dominion vessel hesitated, their entire assault grinding to a halt. It was the first time in the war that the enemy had shown doubt. And then the warship spoke. A transmission cut across every frequency, bypassing encrypted channels, overriding Dominion and human networks alike. A voice, mechanical yet eerily human, echoed across the comms. "You should not have come here." The message was not directed at the humans. Kane felt a cold chill run down his spine. The ship, whatever it was, wasn't just an ally. It wasn't fighting for humanity's survival. It had its own purpose, its own mission, and it had just begun. The Dominion forces snapped out of their hesitation and fired everything they had. Hundreds of plasma lances, kinetic rail slugs, and disruptor beams converge on the warship. The void erupted in a storm of light and fire. But the ship was untouched. It didn't dodge. It didn't activate shields. The attack simply vanished before impact, absorbed into nothingness. Then it moved again. 1 second, it hovered in place. The next, it was among the enemy fleet, tearing through their ranks with impossible precision. Every shot it fired, every movement it made was calculated, purposeful. It didn't waste energy. It didn't fight like any known warship. It was something else entirely. Humanity had spent years searching for an edge in this war. It had just found one, and so had the Dominion. Kane had spent his life studying war. He understood ships, battle formations, and the brutal calculus of survival. But nothing in his experience prepared him for this. The warship was rewriting every rule of engagement in real time, cutting through the Dominion fleet as if it had already planned the entire battle before it even arrived. The Dominion, for all their arrogance, were faltering. Their fleet, which had moved with machine-like coordination minutes ago, now scrambled in disarray. Frigates abandoned formation. Dreadnoughts rotated to fire blindly, and emergency FTL drives flared to life as some ships attempted to flee. None succeeded. The warship's weapons weren't just powerful. They were absolute. It didn't fire barges. It didn't launch missiles. It simply ended ships, one shot per target, as if the very concept of their existence was erased. Kane's fleet held position watching. Every instinct told him to move, to act, to do something. But there was nothing to do. He wasn't in control of this battle anymore. "Sir," the comms officer said, voice shaking. "We intercepted a Dominion transmission. High-level encryption cracked automatically when the warship arrived. You need to hear this." The message played. The Dominion Supreme Commander's voice, cold and sharp, carried an emotion Kane had never heard from their kind. "Panic. It's real. The Revenant is real. We were deceived. We were never the apex predator. We were never in control. Pull back. Now." The transmission ended. Kane barely processed it before another signal came through. But this one wasn't Dominion. It was from the warship itself. A set of coordinates. No voice. No demands. Just a location. Deep within the wreckage of the shattered Dominion fleet. "Admiral," his XO said cautiously. "This could be a trap." Kane nodded, but his gut told him otherwise. The warship hadn't destroyed them yet. If it wanted them gone, they'd be gone. This was an invitation. Minutes later, the Resolute approached the coordinates. The battlefield around them was unrecognizable. Hulks of Dominion ships, massive wrecks where entire fleets once stood. Then they saw it. A Dominion command carrier, heavily damaged but still intact, drifting amid the debris. The warship hovered nearby, silent, waiting. "Boarding teams, prepare for deployment," Kane ordered. As soon as the human teams breached the carrier, they realized something was wrong. There was no resistance. No signs of battle inside. Just emptiness. The corridors were silent. The Dominion crew was gone. Then they found the bridge. Bodies. Not from combat. Not from decompression, but from fear. High-ranking officers, some of the most ruthless tacticians Kane had ever faced, dead with no visible wounds. Their faces frozen in expressions of absolute terror, and carved into the metal walls, in a language no human should have recognized. Yet Kane somehow understood was a single phrase. "It has returned." The warship sent one final transmission before vanishing into the void. A data packet, encrypted, ancient, far beyond human or Dominion technology. Kane stared at the screen as it decrypted before his eyes, revealing information that changed everything. The warship wasn't built by humans. It wasn't Dominion. It was something older, and it had only just awakened. The war was over. At least, that's what the Dominion thought. Their fleet had been annihilated. Their command structure shattered. Their highest-ranking officers were either dead or fleeing into deep space. But the warship remained, silent, unmoving, watching. Kane stood on the bridge of the Resolute, staring at the tactical display. The battlefield was quiet now, an eerie silence after the storm. The Dominion had lost more ships in an hour than they had in the last 5 years combined. Whatever the warship was, whatever its purpose, it had changed the course of history in a single engagement. But Kane knew better than to celebrate. "Sir," the comms officer said, "new enemy signatures detected. Multiple FTL jumps inbound. Kane's heart sank. Reinforcements. The Dominion hadn't given up yet. The display flared red as dozens of new ships arrived, an elite armada, larger than the original fleet, led by the Ascendant RAF, the Dominion's most powerful dreadnought. Unlike before, there was no hesitation, no panic. These ships moved with precision, deploying formations designed to overwhelm even the most advanced enemy. The Dominion had realized something. They couldn't run. They couldn't hide. Their only chance was to throw everything they had at the warship and hope brute force could do what tactics had failed to accomplish. The Resolute wasn't their target. None of the human ships were. This was a battle between the Dominion and it. The Dominion opened fire first. Every capital ship unleashed its full payload: plasma cannons, hyper-accelerated railguns, gravity imploders. Space itself seemed to tear apart under the sheer volume of energy. For the first time, the warship responded with something other than attack. It moved, not through standard propulsion, not with any known physics. It simply shifted, avoiding the barrage as if it had seen the attack before it happened. Then it countered. What happened next defied explanation. Dominion ships didn't just explode, they collapsed. Some crumpled inward, crushed by forces no known weapon could generate. Others flickered and vanished, as if erased from time itself. And the Ascendant RAF, the Dominion's pride, the warship that had obliterated entire colonies, it lasted 7 seconds. One moment, it loomed over the battlefield, its shields absorbing enough firepower to crack a planet. The next, a pulse emanated from the warship, a single, silent wave of distortion. The Ascendant RAF didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply ceased to exist. The Dominion fleet faltered. The warship did not. It weaved through the enemy lines like a predator dissecting prey, destroying only the ships that refused to retreat. Within minutes, the reinforcements were gone. The few that survived jumped to FTL, not in formation, not with orders, just running. And then, as if the battle had never happened, the warship stopped. Kane exhaled, barely realizing he had been holding his breath. The Resolute sensors showed nothing. No energy buildup. No movement. The warship was waiting. But for what? A new transmission came through. Not words. Not a voice. A star map. The warship had chosen its next destination. And for reasons Kane couldn't explain, he knew that humanity had only seen the beginning. The warship left without a trace. No engine trails, no residual energy signatures, just gone. One moment, it loomed over the battlefield, a phantom in the dark. The next, empty space remained. Kane had fought countless battles, had seen death and victory in equal measure, but nothing had ever unsettled him like this. The star map still lingered on his display. It wasn't just coordinates. It was a path, a journey stretching deep into uncharted space, beyond the Dominion's reach, beyond anything humanity had explored. And the warship had given it to them, not as a warning, not as a threat, as an invitation. Kane knew command would want answers. Fleet intelligence would dissect every recording, every sensor log, every piece of data they could scrape from the battle. They would demand to know what the warship was, where it had come from, and why it had helped them. But Kane had the sinking feeling that the real question wasn't what or where. It was who. Reports flooded in. The Dominion was collapsing. Their core worlds had gone silent. Their fleets, once the most feared force in the galaxy, were fracturing. Some warlords were declaring independence. Others were vanishing without explanation. It was as if the Dominion itself had realized something far worse than war had arrived. Then came the distress signals. Not from human colonies, not from the remnants of Dominion forces, but from places that shouldn't have existed. Abandoned star systems, dead worlds, locations so ancient they had been erased from every known map. And all of them shared one thing, a single, repeating message, broadcast in every language known to sentient life. It has awakened. Cain didn't believe in fate. He didn't believe in myths or destiny or things beyond human understanding. But he believed in war. He believed in patterns. And this was something old, something that had been waiting far longer than humanity had existed. The warship wasn't a savior. It wasn't a weapon. It was a harbinger. Humanity had spent decades fighting to survive against the Dominion. They had believed the enemy at their doorstep was the greatest threat they would ever face. But the warship had shown them a different reality. The Dominion wasn't the predator. They had only been another species blindly stumbling through history, believing themselves untouchable. And now, the real threat was waking up. Cain looked at the star map one last time before making his decision. "Set a course," he ordered. "We follow the path." There were no arguments, no hesitation. The crew understood, even if they couldn't explain why. Humanity had been given a choice: to ignore the warning and wait for whatever came next, or to find the truth before it found them. And Cain refused to wait for the unknown to come knocking.